Dave, good morning. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Ken. How are you doing today?
Doing well. And Dave, thank you very much for agreeing to come back and continue this discussion that we started in our last session about the religious right and the things that they're doing to maintain the attention of the current occupant in the White House. And of course, he's staying with them and feigning interest in what they believe because they represent votes for him. But more importantly, I know you have some good insights about ways that they are quietly behind the scenes impacting and affecting our society today. Uh, I'd like to hear your thoughts about some of the types of steps and procedures that they're using to bring that about.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kent. We know from about 40 years of experience now, you and I have both been around the legislatures and the school boards and so forth, that there's been a movement to change the way children are taught in the schools. We've been through the evolution wars now, and they've made some real progress in that by maybe not getting creationism in the biology curriculum, but they've gotten intelligent design. So they make little steps that way. We see funding going to schools that are not secular, but are religious in nature, which have prayer in schools and so forth. So a lot of these little steps have taken place over the years, and it's become normalized in our society that we're no longer a fully secular society that recognizes the fundamental principle of separation of church and state, as we see in the First Amendment. So now what we're dealing with is going down that road even further. How much further can we push? And unless we begin to become fully aware and understand what is happening and just not accept it as normal and go on with our daily lives, if we don't stop taking that position, it will continue down the road. And I think it's very important now for us to begin to push back.
That makes a lot of sense, Dave. Now, on the point of pushing back, what are some effective ways that the constituency, we voters, can stay informed about this and communicate to our elected officials that we're very concerned about this tack and how we feel like it needs to be reevaluated and that their priorities need to reflect these concerns?
I think it's very important to, first of all, understand what the First Amendment says. I think it's very important to understand separation of church and state, and we begin to make that part of our narrative. Number two, how has that fundamental principle been violated through pushing curricula in the public schools? For instance, in history now, we see a strong move for the very far right Christian movement to say, well, the United States really wasn't founded on the freedom of religion. It was founded as a Christian nation. So they're beginning now to make that push. And if you push that long enough, far enough, and there's a lot of complacency, that will make headway.
That's an excellent point. We're even hearing now, Dave, in the media lately that some school children are questioning whether or not the Holocaust actually occurred.
That's right. And I think that's a good analogy, because if you don't address that, it will be fading in the memory of our mass society, our mass memory, so to speak.
Right.
And then you have another movement, a diabolical movement, saying, well, the Holocaust really didn't happen. And just ignoring that it did happen and losing our memory of that, and then having another push that it didn't happen, becomes a very dangerous form of propaganda. And the same thing with Christianity and our Constitution. The Constitution says nothing about Christianity. The framers had no intention of including any doctrine of or theological Christian principles in our Constitution. So I think we have to really make that clear and begin to talk about it, Kent, like we are on these videos.
You stated that very clearly, Dave. And so to sort of wrap up here for this session, but this is a deep well. We need to have further sessions on this to continue to explore this and to help inform what people are able to do for themselves and as a group to deal with this situation. So any closing recommendations here for what people ought to be studying and how they should be informing themselves carefully to act on this?
I do, Ken. I think we need to start looking at the textbooks. I think we need to start looking at what's being put into the
Very
textbooks
good.
as parents, as citizens, and begin to push back at school board meetings, begin to write letters to the editor, talk to our politicians, and not ignore this and think that, well, it'll go away, because it isn't going to go away. It's going to get worse.
That's great. Perhaps in future sessions, we should give some guidelines or offer some guidelines about how people can prepare themselves for those school board meetings so that they can make their voices heard. What do you think about that?
I think that's correct. And I think we should also, in future videos like this, talk about what has happened to the biology curriculum. What is happening to the history curriculum? Who
Good.
are the people out there that are pushing, and what do they want?
Great. Well, Dave, I find this very helpful, and I really appreciate your taking the time today to share these thoughts with us. They're always very helpful and very valuable.
Appreciate it, Ken. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.